I will shout it from the highest hills. I will shout it from the floor of Congress. I will be their voice. Now, on education. What is the role of the federal government in education? I don't want the federal government to have a role in our education. I want the state of Wisconsin to have to set our not only our curriculum. I want them to be in charge of setting our standards. We have federalism here in the United States, or at least the concept of it, even though we backed away from it now in recent years. But our founding fathers gave us a great federal system. Let the state of Wisconsin go to work. Let the state of Massachusetts and Mississippi and California, and we can learn from each other. Federal government, get on education. The state of Wisconsin can do that enough.
I think the question is, what was the role of government in increasing the effectiveness of the workforce?
Increasing the competency and or effectiveness of the American workforce.
Okay. I don't think they have a role, quite frankly. I can tell you, as someone who's employed lots and lots of people, we've decided to train them ourselves. And they come in with a basic level of education that's provided to them through our school systems. But I don't believe the federal government has a role in it whatsoever. And quite frankly, sometimes they send us people that we have to retrain. And so the fact of the matter, the federal government has been a total disaster in education. When President Carter established the Department of Education, we were among the leading countries in the world in education. Today, 25 or 30 or 35 years later, we're ranked 18. And we're measuring effectiveness. Effectiveness, and that's a word. That's something that government rarely measures. They don't like to measure outcomes because they wouldn't like the measurement. But if we measure effectiveness in education based on what the federal government has done, their rating would be pretty abysmal. And so I would much rather trust educators and parents right here in Wisconsin to do the education. And if we begin to put back in the hands of our teachers, and our educators, and our families and parents here, we will have much better outcomes. Thank you.
In order to increase effectiveness for the workforce, we need better communication between our schools, public and private, with the workforce. We need to make sure that we understand and define what the expectations are in the workforce so that we can compete. I've heard across northeast Wisconsin with manufacturers that they have jobs, but they're high technology manufacturing jobs, so we need to prepare our students with the education they need to compete in those jobs so that we can stay competitive with China and India, who right now are producing more engineers than the United States. Unfortunately, we produce more attorneys, and I know there's a joke in there somewhere. Education is a responsibility constitutionally of our state legislatures. And as a constitutionalist, I believe that the money that we spend in education needs to stay local. And it needs to stay on the state level and then stay down in our local governments. Now, if we're talking about private education and opportunities for funding, that's a whole nother matter. I'd be remiss if I didn't go back to the position of not funding troops. I take issue because I have family members on the ground in Afghanistan. They weren't lucky to be positioned in an airplane hangar. I feel a sense of urgency to make sure, it's the truth. I feel a sense of urgency to make sure they come home and they're safe. And the facts are the facts.
That's time.
We're all
Thank
passionate.
you. This is a not education, but a separate question, and we'll make it 60 seconds if we could. And this begins with Reed. How would you assure your constituents that you would truly represent their interests and not simply those of your party or of a special interest group?
Yeah, I think it's really a great question. And you know, the reality is you have to take my word for it. That's the reality of it. And you have to vet me, and you have to look into my own personal history, of personal integrity, and you have to make a choice. And then if in fact I don't live up to that high expectation of actually going to Washington, D.C. and representing you, which is a passion of mine, by the way, representing you. If I don't do that, there's a wonderful process in this country. In 2 years, 24 months, you get to hold me accountable by voting me out, which is exactly what's going to happen on November 2nd with our current Congress.
Gary? Not allowed.
Would you repeat the question?
Yes. How would you assure your constituents that you would truly represent their interests and not simply those of your party or of a special interest group?
Absolutely. We have the most low dollars contributed to our campaign of any other campaign. We also have the lowest dollars with any other interest groups. And the two interest groups, the Right March, are ideological. They're conservative. And the other group is conservative as well. My principles are well known. I have core values that hold me, I don't hold them. They are the rule of law and the Constitution, which means justice for all. No one is above the law, no one is below the law. Secondly, opportunities for everyone. And thirdly, free market competition. They've dictated every decision, everything I've ever done in my life. The people who supported me and support me still understand that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. Roger?
90% of the money that I've raised comes from right here, from individuals like you in the state of Wisconsin. It doesn't come from other states, it doesn't come from other interest groups. So you can know that when I go to Washington, I will be representing you, not those special interests. You can know, you don't have to take my word for it. Look at my record in Madison. I voted against Republican leadership, I voted against Democrat leadership. But one thing I always did was to vote for the district, to take care of the sidewalks of the people in my town. And that's what I'll continue to do in Washington.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move on to experience and the other categories. We're going to start with Terry. This is a 30-second question. You have all referred to your private sector business experience as an important reason why you can best create jobs and why the 8th district residents should vote for you. In your highest position in the company with which you worked, what title did you carry? How many years did you serve in that role?
I created both a 501c3 to do research and development on why it was children and adults weren't learning to read. That was in the 90s, in 1994. Created it, was the entrepreneur, funded it, wrote the grants, was the president. Also formed a consulting company, was the president. Formed it to answer the problems that I was hearing around the district. Used my 501c3 foundation in order to write the first charter school law. There are over 30,000 children in Wisconsin charter schools, and I can tell you that the best thing government can do is push back the bureaucracy and make sure we're not in the way. Thank you.
How many of you grew up on a family farm or parents had their own business? Quite a few of you, just like myself. My family and I come from a construction background. And, growing up, my dad said, what do you want to do? I said, I want to go into building. And he said, I want you to go get a college education. Went and got the college education, went back into building. I don't know if it helped me on the job site, but I tell you, we do have more informed conversations when we're out there. My family and I, my brothers and I, formed a development company, Roth Development Corporation. We also formed, my brothers and I specifically, a real estate investment corporation.
Excuse me, your time's up.
Well, I have to tell all this experience. You don't give me enough time. We can talk more later, folks.
I was president of the Ribble Group, Inc. Since 1981. If my math is correct, that's 28 years.
The second question is 90 seconds, and Roger, we'll start with you. What one part of your private business practice do you believe can be applied at a national level?
Well, you've got to be able to work together with people. I think that's key. For anyone who's ever been in sales, for anyone who's ever been in small business, you've got to be able to work together with people. That's the problem that we got out in Washington right now. Nobody can work together. They're so steadfast in their ways, they can't see the possibility that the people on the other side, though their direction might be wrong, their intentions might be in the right place. And I look forward to going out there, using the skills that I've learned not only in the legislature, not only in the military, but in business as well, working along with other subcontractors and other partners in the business to make sure that we remain profitable and that we had a product that, quite frankly, consumers were willing to buy. And we've seen that. Our company has seen evidence of that. So that's what I look to bring not only to the district, but out to Washington, a spirit of cooperation, of working together. in moving this country forward.
Well, I think there's actually a lot of things, and how much time do I have? 90 seconds?
No.
Certainly balancing budgets and completing projects on time, those are things that government's not been very good at. How about creating jobs? Spent a lifetime creating jobs, real jobs, high-paying jobs, and that's something government's not particularly adept at either. Working in the team environment with groups that come together to solve problems. A lot of times in the business world, we have a lot of dissension as people are pulling and pushing and tugging to try to have things their way. But that dissension, when directed and channeled correctly, can be an incredible way of getting things done. And so I've spent a lifetime doing those types of things. But I think probably the number one experience that I had going to Washington that I've learned and applied for my business will be the ability to create real jobs in Northeast Wisconsin.
In the private sector, I think all of our skills translate to what we're asked to do in the public sector. As an author writing a book on how we can improve government and how we can remove business as usual politics, how we were able to pass major reforms recognized all the way to Washington from the Small Business Administration, there's no greater preparation than having many years of problem solving in the private sector. I have a love and compassion for people, which is why I listen, identify problems, find patterns, and use free market solutions to solve them. I think it's a knack. I believe it's why people came to me and asked me to run in the first place this time around and said, we need someone that we can trust, we need someone who has the integrity of their principles, and we need somebody who's honest. I'll deliver those same life skills if I earn your vote and your trust in Washington, because my family is too important to sacrifice, as they will be sacrificing my time for me to go to Washington on your behalf. I'm going to do the job correctly, and I'm going to make sure that I continue to make a difference in your lives, because it's your lives, your pensions, your businesses that are in jeopardy right now with Obama and his ally Kagan in their offices in Washington.